middle of our street, our house. In the middle of our...
Welcome to All Things Moore County, Moore County's weekly radio show, highlighting the many facets of the Sandhills. That includes real estate, lifestyles, community, and neighborhood. And now, from 4 Properties, here's your host, Bill Sahadi.
Our house. In the middle of our street, our house.
Good morning and welcome to the talk show, All Things Moore County. Dorothy, that was some show we had last week, wasn't it, with those kids?
Oh, yeah, it was great.
They blew me away.
They did a great job.
9th grader, 8th grader, and 11th grader.
Yep.
And they were all old souls in
Yes,
a lot
they
of
were.
ways. And listening to them speak about their moms reminded me of our show last year when one of our guests today actually was the only male at the table during our Mother's Day event when we spoke with different moms about their kids, and that was David Michael Wolf from Carolina Philharmonic.
Yes.
David, we didn't mean to squeeze you out last week, but we brought you on this week.
And I thought it would be an annual event.
Well, you handled yourself very well. David has been on the show a couple of times, and the great thing about David is, in addition to speaking about the Carolina Philharmonic, he's pretty multi-talented. He gets to stay, and he gets to ad-lib, and he gets to take part in the new subject of each show, and you always do a great job.
Well, in other venues, I'm usually kicked out.
You're never kicked out. We're going to be speaking with David Michael Wolf this morning about a special event that's going to be happening this evening. We're going to catch up with him about the Carolina Philharmonic, and we're going to shift gears during the show, and we're going to be speaking about the 2nd annual Shark event coming up. And we have Kelly Cameron here, who is a teacher at Pinecrest High School in Entrepreneurship, which is one of my favorite topics, and Melissa Hall, who is a committee member and also very much involved with More Forward. And I first want to say to you, good morning, Melissa.
Good morning. Thank you for having me again.
You were on with Kay Barron a couple of months ago at the end of last year, and we spoke about More Forward, and we're going to talk about it a lot today. We're going to talk about the event, and we're going to start talking with probably one of the best entrepreneurs in all of Moore County, and that's David, with what he's done with Carolina Philharmonic.
I think I probably qualify as one of the worst in Moore County.
Not really.
I came to town, and I thought, like most entrepreneurs, you think you have an idea, and it's just going to work.
Right.
And I came with, maybe $30,000 in savings, and with my wife, and we got in town, presented a concert that I thought, everybody's just going to show up. It's going to be great. Gathered musicians from all across the state. We rehearsed for a couple of days. We had a small chamber orchestra of 18. We did the concert, and it's like starting at 7 o'clock or so, 6 o'clock, nobody's there. 6:30, nobody. 6:40, one person shows up. Right before it starts, 2 others showed up. We had 3 people, and 2 were comped.
Right, and a couple were related to
you,
right?
A couple were, related by.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was $10,000 that was gone.
Right.
And then, the next month I had another concert, another $10,000 gone. And then my wife sits me down and says, "What are you doing with our?" She realized it was our savings that I was drawing on.
Yeah.
But thankfully, I was rescued because I knew nothing about business. I had no idea what I was doing. But there's so many people in Moore County, like the people involved with More Forward. Entrepreneurs, great business people. Mm-hmm. Within about 6 months, I had 100 volunteers. I had people cajoling me saying,
mm-hmm.
"David, you're making all these enormous mistakes. You can do better if you just knew a little bit about how to market what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
We could create something special here." Mm-hmm. So I was at least not stupid enough to not take their advice. And they coached me, and they taught me how to create a business. And gradually, we built it up very, very slowly, one person at a time.
So for the 5 years or so that you've been here, that I've known you, that you've been on the show, you came here and you went against the grain to start something, and with your own money. Is that an entrepreneur, Kelly?
That's very much an entrepreneur. It's all about having an idea and turning it into a reality.
Right.
And investing of your own time and of your own money, and that's very much what we teach at Pinecrest.
And what he has built up over the years is an unbelievable volunteer base, an enthusiastic and passionate base. So people who come into town today and they hear about the Carolina Philharmonic, they go, "Oh, yeah, that's been here forever." Sure. They don't remember what it was like in year one.
We started, with 3 people, 10 people, 30 people, 50 people, 100 people, and the show tonight we've got 1,000 plus.
Wow.
Tell me about the show tonight. What's going on?
This is our season finale. It's one of our best concerts of the season. We have 2 big Broadway stars coming in, Sean McDermott and Lisa Brescia. Between the 2 of them, they've been leads in a dozen major Broadway shows, and I couldn't believe I could get either of them to come. But they knew each other, and I got the one, and I said, "Could you please call up any of your friends?" And she cajoled Sean to come with her. And so the 2 of them are doing this concert. And it's just, he was the main lead, for example, in Miss Saigon, opposite who was the lady who played that. And then he was Jesus in Jesus Christ Superstar. He had these really big Broadway roles.
This is the New York City Broadway.
Oh yeah, the New York, yeah.
Wow.
And then they toured on the national tours with all these big shows, both of them. And so they're here in town. They flew in a few days ago. We've been rehearsing with the orchestra at the piano.
Right.
And it's going to be a great show.
Yeah.
Full orchestra backing them up.
And where is this going to be held?
At the high school, Robert E. Lee Auditorium, at Pinecrest Auditorium.
Okay.
It's if we were at one of our regular smaller venues, we would have sold out already. But we've got probably another 300 seats available. So if you want to come get at the door.
What does the auditorium hold?
1,300, a little over 1,300.
So they're not going to close the back half of it.
Oh no, we let them know we've got to have everything open because we're packed.
Yeah. Kelly, I have to switch gears. So a couple of weeks ago, I went to Facebook, and on Facebook I saw the auditorium jammed with kids. Absolutely jammed. Do you remember? Do you know the event?
We didn't get to partake ourselves as teachers. However, I saw the buses in the parking lots.
Right.
And I heard the music coming out of the auditorium, yeah. And I wanted to go in and see what was going on, but I had to get to class, so I couldn't participate. But I heard it was really good.
Yeah, so in addition to the culture and the people that David's brought into Moore County just because of his presence here, he's also been a great role model and a mentor to a lot of the students, when those indelible impressions are formed. Teaching music, having them appreciate. You said something once on the show that when a child learns to play an instrument, maybe they're not going to be like you, but as they get older, they're going to appreciate music, whether it's just to support the arts or whether they decide to go into it more seriously.
I mean, it's really, when you're exposing children to music, you're opening up a part of their mind and heart that can't be touched by anything else.
Right.
And for thousands of years, we've talked about the arts and the sciences. And at a certain point in the past 50, 60 years, it's become the sciences and the arts. And gradually the arts have lost their importance. We've stopped funding them every year for 60 years. We've funded the arts less and less nationally, every single year. And if you cut a program, if you cut the arts by a little bit every year for 60 years, pretty soon there's not a whole lot left to cut. And so my goal in creating the orchestra was not to create another symphony orchestra with a goal of giving concerts and on the side doing something for education. The idea was that the primary mission of the orchestra would be to create an educational institution to bring the joy of exceptional music to children.
Right.
And as a way to do that, we will present concerts to bring in thousands of people from the community to tell them what we're doing, to try to ask for their support, so that then we can serve thousands of local children through our programs. And that's what we're doing now.
And you get a mixed group of guests to some of your events. For instance, tonight, it's not just going to be the parents, is it?
Tonight we'll get people of all ages coming in. I mean, we have families, people from every age bracket, cultural backgrounds.
So if people want to go out today and they want to get tickets last minute, give us some direction and some instruction.
Somebody called the box office and said, "How am I supposed to dress for this?"
Right.
And they said, just bring yourself. In Moore County, nobody dresses up too fancy very often.
But people can purchase tickets at Nature's Own.
That's right. Several places around town.
Heavenly Pines Fine Jewelry, across from the post office on Highway 5. The Arts Council of Moore County, the Campbell House. And they'll sell tickets at the door, but you only have about 300 seats.
I would recommend coming early. Come at 6. At the door, the box office opens at 6, and the concert starts at 7.
Okay.
So there's going to be some pretty big crowds, and so yeah, come early if you want to come out. It'll be great.
So this is your season finale.
That's right.
Season 5.
Yeah.
What are the plans going forward as you look into the rest of 2015, going into the autumn season?
Well, honestly, we've been doing concerts about every 3 or 4 weeks for 6 years now, without taking a break. And we decided as an organization that this summer, rather than doing an outdoor pops concert like we've done the past couple of years or doing a jazz festival, we're just going to take 3 months and regroup, refocus, look at our strategy, and look at how we can take, we were serving 30 children and then 50 and then 100. And then when Carnegie Hall contacted us about 2 years ago, we started partnering with them and started serving 1,000 children. And that was all the 4th graders in Moore County. And then we repeated that program, but we expanded to another 3,000 kids. So this year we're serving 4,000 children. And we want to see how we can, my personal mission is every year to serve 20% more children through interactive orchestra programs. So I want to figure out, strategizing into the future, how can we reach 20% more kids every single year and still find a way to fund this?
Kelly's wheels are turning as you're speaking, and you already have some ideas, I can tell.
Well, give me a little bit of time to process that. But I will tell you, I just have a personal story. You were talking about exposing children to music.
Yeah.
When I was growing up, I started playing the violin in 5th, 6th grade, I think it was. And I played it up all through middle school, and unfortunately had to get out of it going into high school just because
there was no orchestra.
Well, there was. It was just diminishing. However, I had my core curriculum that I had to take in order to get into college. They had this college path. I don't know what it was called at that point in time. I don't recall. It's something different now, but it didn't fit in. But I do remember it gave me a huge appreciation for music in general, and it opened me up to art. And even today, I have a huge appreciation for classical music and just all different kinds of music and different kinds of art. And I mean, even today, I go on my travels. I travel quite extensively throughout the world, and I kind of always relate back to my time playing in the orchestra. Excuse me, and how I really enjoy that, and how I can kind of associate different pieces of art to the music and stuff that I have played. So it was really interesting. I'm glad that you brought that up.
Yeah. Well, it does stay with you, whether it's a single concert or a single program, or whether you pursue it for several years. The music never leaves you, and it somehow does guide you to all sorts of other music and arts.
And it's interesting, Bill, that you said that my wheels were turning, because my wheels were, and I was trying to figure out, I wonder if there's a project here that my kids could work on for next year.
That'd be fantastic.
I'm always looking for kind of capstone type projects that we can work on.
Yeah.
And I'd love to see if we can kind of put our heads together and figure out something for my group for next year.
That'd be beautiful.
Yeah. Great.
Can we shake on that?
Yeah.
Don't kids get inspired by people who are as directed as he is? And they're passionate, whether or not it's what they're interested in. Just what is it that makes an entrepreneur motivated? What is it that opens up their eyes? And just listening to somebody who's very credible.
I'll tell you, based on our field trips that we've done, my eyes have really been open. This is my first year teaching high school. I've taught collegiate level, but this is my first year teaching high school. And I've been in the world of business before, and so really I'm kind of moving full-time into academia. And I going on the field trips and hearing seeing the students' eyes and kind of interest sparked when they're hearing people talk. And it really is about the passion. It really is about the stories that these people have gone through and kind of almost stumbling into what it is that they've had. They've had a path. They started out, hey, I wanted to go into, like myself, banking, and something in life has happened. And they've kind of had this great idea, and they've kind of started small, and it kind of snowballed into something huge and something great, like you're doing here with the Carolina Philharmonic. So, I mean, that's exactly what the kids love to hear. That's exactly what sparks their interest. And I think of one student in particular who always tells me, just tell me the story. Tell me the story about how this got started. And
Right.
sometimes I struggle because I don't know the story, so I have to make it up. But, yeah, those who have a story behind it really will spark their interest and get them moving forward.
Sounds like a good student.
Yeah, he is. He challenges sometimes, but he keeps him on the toes. But he is a good student. He is a great student in my class.
Doesn't the traditional job fair pale in comparison to the type of presence that he talks about and the passion that he has? Kids don't just get a job fair like this is a job. There's something else about what makes an entrepreneur click.
Yeah, it's kind of like a special, innate something that's kind of sparked in someone along the way. A job fair doesn't do a good job of talking about someone's passions.
Right.
A job fair really talks about, hey, when you get out of school, come work for us and we'll give you a paycheck.
Right.
Entrepreneurship, yeah, it's about money at the end of the day, but it's more about what am I really interested in and where do my passions lie and how do they complement this idea, this concept.
Right.
People have a job. They go home at the end of the day and they're like, okay, well, I'm not really 100% satisfied with what I've done, but I'm okay with it. But people who have a passion for what it is they do, they eat, they sleep, they breathe, they think about this idea all the time.
Yeah.
And that's really what one of the big differentiating factors is, and I talk about it in my class quite often, is find what you are truly passionate about. Find what you really love doing, and you want to spend the rest of your life doing that. And you won't be working, you'll be just having fun.
Right.
Yeah.
As a teacher and as a person in business, you can probably pick up very quickly whether a kid has the DNA to self-generate or not. Right?
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, sometimes you have to pull it out of them. Sometimes they
It's hide and seek.
Yeah, I mean, I think of one student in particular. He's a brilliant kid, but yet he has some kind of trouble along the way with kind of controlling emotions. I guess that would be the best name. So to describe it, but what I try to teach him is how do we focus those energies, those emotions in a positive direction, and something that you're truly interested about. And so we actually have him focused this semester through Shark Tank. We have him focused on a concept, an idea that he's truly passionate about.
Okay.
And we're moving forward. We're creating a business around it.
We're going to come back in the second set. As usual, David, we want you to stay and join us on the show.
Would love to.
And I hope we are playing Eye of the Tiger because that's what you're looking for. And that's what we hope the kids get because with it, the world is their oyster. This is All Things Moore County. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the second set. Eye of the Tiger is a song I've always associated with getting ready, getting pumped up, getting yourself positioned to compete, and giving it your all. And Melissa Hall, we hadn't had a chance to speak with you in the first set, but was a pretty spirited conversation between Kelly and David for a set.
Yeah, and it really makes me happy because this is what More Forward is all about, entrepreneurship, creating entrepreneurship. And I've been involved from the beginning. And initially we were focusing on adults, and then Mary Beth Sandell came on board and changed the perspective to youth, which is definitely the right direction for Moore County. And along with the youth, we have other businesses that are successful, like the Philharmonic, a great example of all the excellent support we have here in Moore County. And that's one of the things we found out when Partners in Progress wanted to start this entrepreneurship hub. Found out that there's incredible resources here. And indeed, when I started the More Forward Mentor Board, it was wonderful because we had so many people who were willing to sit down and give their time and energy to help foster entrepreneurship. And I think that can give confidence to anyone, an adult or a student, that if they want to start a business, that they can, and that there are resources here. And that's, again, one of the great things about Moore County.
So tell us a little bit about the upcoming event. It's the second annual Shark Tank?
Second annual Shark Tank. Again, the focus is on high school students exclusively. It's it's Wednesday, May 20th. Starting at 9:15, the doors are going to open. We have 15 teams who are each going to have about 5 minutes to pitch. We have some excellent sharks who will be judging their presentations. The kids, I know, have been working really, really hard. I'm sure Kelly can talk about what they've been up to. Union Pines, Northmore, and Pinecrest. And when they win, they have a chance to win some real money. They're $2,000 first and second place prizes and a $500 prize.
So how are the teams selected?
You want to talk to that, Kelly?
Sure. We every school does it a little different as to how they want to create the criteria. However, we open it up to the campus. There's a Shark Tank event coming up May 20th. It's your opportunity to have an idea, create a business around it. Your opportunity also to get some funding to hopefully start the business through the prize. First prize, again, $1,000. Second prize, $500. So at Pinecrest, we open it up. We put announcements up for probably a couple of weeks. Announcing Shark Tank, opportunity to win some money. We focus really on the money itself. We had a lot of students come with interest, and what I had them do was pitch their idea to me and to some of our other CTE instructors that we had at Pinecrest. We got to put our heads together to figure out what has a true viable idea to turn into a business that can be profitable and also support our community here locally as well. And then we started to formulate those ideas into businesses from there. And there's a lot of participants who are in my class as well. And so hopefully they are taking the ideas that we're teaching in class and utilizing and putting together good, strong business plans, marketing plans.
So you're encouraging them to think outside of the box.
Very much so.
And stand out on their own and pitch an idea.
Very much so, yeah.
Who will they be pitching the ideas to?
We have an assortment of judges.
One of them is our chairman, the Philharmonic's chairman, Greg Bradbury.
Our first judge is Tom McPherson. And Melissa, you're going to have to help me here a little bit. Tom is a local resident from Pinehurst. And
he's been very, very successful in different businesses that he's started, and we're very fortunate to have him in the area. He led several successful high-tech companies, resulting in one IPO and 2 mergers. He is a self-described serial entrepreneur.
Awesome.
And we also have Claudia. Claudia, who I've had the pleasure of meeting.
Claudia Miller.
Yeah, Claudia Miller just recently. She's a very energetic individual. She owns a local retail business here in the community, which seems to be very successful. And Claudia has a lot of energy and passion for the kids, so I'm looking forward to getting her feedback on the event on Wednesday. And then, of course, we have Mr. Bradbury, who sits on the board here, Carolina Philharmonic.
And it looks like you've got Stan Bradshaw as well.
Yes, we do. Stan Bradshaw will be there as well. He is with Bradshaw Capital Management Group, which is a venture capital type firm as well.
Right. He's an inspirational man. incredible businessman. I've met him
great.
several times.
Oh, good. I'm looking forward to getting to know him a little better. I've only met him one time, just, earlier this week for breakfast. And then we have Mina Ubing. Am I pronouncing that right? Mina actually has just relocated to this area. She also sits on the board for More Forward, and she started with our planning committee, and since she was named a shark, it's kind of backed away a bit. She didn't want to have any biased information ahead of time before she started judging. But Mina's great. She's also going to be the board chairman for More Forward for next year as well.
Oh, really?
She spent her entire career in healthcare. And in Ohio, so her and her husband are just relocated here. So, and her and her husband also have a lot of passion when it comes to helping kids start businesses. In Ohio, they had a kind of a nonprofit foundation of themselves, and kind of built that up in Ohio. So, hoping to tap into that expertise here as well.
And we can't forget Andrew Lyons, who is our MC.
Yes.
He's a senior vice president and a branch manager for First Bank in Southern Pines, and is the president of the Public Education Foundation and chairs the board of the Chamber of Moore County, chairs their board.
Let me tell you something about Andrew Lyons. He's been on the show a bunch. He's one of the most consistent, proactive people that I know. He doesn't just show up, for one thing and then disappears. He's constantly involved in the community. He's a parent. He's constantly involved in promoting kids. He's been involved in the Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader? Anything that has to do with elevating kids. Andrew's always there.
That's a testament to all these great sharks that we have. It's a testament to all the community support we get.
Yeah.
And Andrew is part of First Bank. They're one of the sponsors that we're so lucky to have the support from.
So the kids are going to get great feedback. It might not sound great to them initially, but all feedback is good, and how the kids react to it is what's going to make or break them, right?
Right, exactly. That's one of the areas that I've been coaching them on is look at all feedback they're getting as constructive feedback. Right. And take it in, absorb it, process it, but don't react to it too quickly. Right. So it's all good stuff.
My resident co-host, David Michael Wolf, you and I have something in common. When I was a kid, I was always encouraged to go out. When I had to learn to swim, my father threw me in the pool and said, "Go learn." When David was young, his mother was a great source and inspiration to you, to encourage you. She was very passionate, and she kind of she saw your spirit, and she allowed you to work with it. You were encouraged at a very young age.
Well, she played the piano every night when all her 4 boys were going to bed. Yeah. And even before I was born, I played piano music every night. And when I was 6, I went to her and I said, "I want to be just like Vladimir Horowitz." Yeah. I'd just seen a concert on PBS. And she said, "Well, we got to find you a piano teacher then." Yeah. So we decided together that we would go out and audition piano teachers. And we went to 3 different piano teachers. This is the kind of dedication. Like the normal parent wouldn't take you to 3 different teachers. They would just kind of look in the phone book and see who lives closest, what's the easiest drive. But we went all over the county looking at different teachers. And then she convinced my dad that we needed to somehow afford this, even though you can only afford so much with 4 boys. But she really supported me, and then my father as well supported me. And I wanted to do crazy things all the time, and they would just say, whatever makes you happy. We want you to be happy.
Right. One of the themes we had last week on the show, talking with the kids, and we had 2 counselors on with us, and that was, how a parent gets tested. They have to try to really support their kid's spirit, whether or not it agrees with them on a day-to-day basis. If they recognize the child's spirit and they encourage them, those kids feel the support that they can kind of step out and do things like this. But if a child doesn't have the support, they don't have the confidence or the self-esteem, and they might be afraid and they'll want to hide out.
That's a really good point. You're right. You have to have kind of a patron in your life. Right. A lot of times that is the parents, and I will tell you, a lot of our students have some very supportive parents. We've had parents who've donated money for their students to actually found these businesses that we're developing here through for Shark Tank. But there's also other members in their lives as well, maybe not necessarily a parent, but friends of the family. I know there's a couple of students who's had some kind of patron mentors who've kind of helped them along as well. But yeah, you definitely need someone in your life to kind of push you and challenge you and try to get you to think outside of the normal box that one is sometimes put into.
Yeah, and the kids get a chance to believe in themselves if someone else believes in them. But in the face of constructive criticism that might not be considered good, that's where you come in, isn't it, to tell them this was a coachable moment and you need to get past that.
There's a lot of moments in my class where we have to take a step back and say, okay, let's process what we just learned. What's interesting as coming from the world of business into the world of academia, I get a lot of feedback from the students about, well, my teachers tell me to do this, my teachers tell me to do that. And I said, well, let's take a step back and let's rethink through this. And why are they actually telling you this, or why are they actually telling you that? And it's been showing them kind of a different perspective on advice they've been getting in general, which I hope is going to translate well into, well, not hope, but I know it'll translate well on Wednesday at Shark Tank as they get the feedback from the Sharks on their business ideas and hopefully turn it into something constructive for them moving forward.
One of the biggest gifts I was given growing up and from all the different mentors I've had is that it's a wonderful thing to fail.
Right.
You know,
Very
you
much
fail
so,
and
yeah.
you learn from it. You have to fail over and over and over again. And the 20th time, you might reach the peak. And then suddenly you're on top of the world and people think you've always been there. But it's that embracing of failure as a learning experience and pursuing failure.
Yeah, it's amazing that a lot of, and I remember when I was a kid too, I would look at failure as a negative. You know, I've failed, I've made a misstep. My life is over, and we got to move on to something else, or perhaps nothing at all. But I try to teach them now, embrace your failures. And I tell them a story of when I worked in banking. One of the ways that we were promoted to an executive level, we had this kind of criteria. We went through an executive committee, and we had to fail. And what did we learn from that failure? And if you had never failed as a manager, you could not be promoted into an executive level position. So I say, guys, embrace your failures. You learn more from failures than you do from successes.
We're going to end on that. We're going to end this set on that smart comment. This is All Things More County. We'll be right back. Welcome back to our final set. Spirited conversation going on, which is always a good sign in between breaks. The Shark event is coming up this Wednesday, May the 20th. It's going to be at the Fair Barn in Pinehurst. It is as you say, Melissa, it's a great mentorship program for students, developing kids who are getting a chance to learn and be challenged and hopefully grow through it, whether they win, whether they don't win, the fact that they're competing.
Yes, and that's another thing that Mary Beth Sandell has set up is opportunity for internships. So she has fellowships, and going to slowly evolve job opportunities for high school students. And whether it's starting a business or tapping into a need and then creating a business or perhaps just getting a job, there's all sorts of layers of opportunity for high school students through More Forward.
And it would be a great experience that the kids will always look back on, because they're getting a chance to look beyond the school, the academic experience, what it lays out in front of them in the world ahead of them as they get older.
Yeah, and there's so much of the community that comes into play here, and we don't never want to forget our sponsors like First Bank or Bricks, who is supplying our lunch and the drinks we're getting from Coca-Cola and Max Catering and all these different organizations that step in and help foster an event like this and foster the big picture of entrepreneurship and education in our community.
What is it to you that what is it about Moore County that has created such a strong spirit of entrepreneurship? That we don't have a lot of big business here, but we have a lot of small businesses, and it's a very supportive community. But what is it that makes Moore County so special?
Well, we're very fortunate to have a lot of people who have moved here from other places.
Right.
So it's sort of a melting pot in some regards. People who have experiences from around the world, whether it's the military or retired people who have been successful in business or people who have come here just to retire. And I think that fostering of community is what's going to help create a better economy and bring businesses to the area, which is just something this area really needs.
And this area is growing by leaps and bounds. There's an energy out there in Moore County today. I see it all the time in business. It's unbelievable. The demographics are changing.
Did you go to Live at 5 last week?
No, I could not. I was working late.
Hundreds of people. So going from 20 people standing in a parking lot to hundreds and hundreds of people on that beautiful new lawn. It's amazing. The
communities in Moore County are growing, and the downtown areas are becoming more vibrant, and it's just everywhere.
It's great.
It really is great. The attitude of the sponsors are very supportive. They want, you don't have a hard time getting sponsors for an event like this. You have not, have you?
Well, that's a credit to Mary Beth Sandell.
Right.
She has a lot of vision and leadership, and she has a great board, and she has some people who are really going to bat for her, and that's what's needed to help.
Mary Beth is a force of nature.
She really is.
She's the real
Very
deal.
much so.
The energy she has and the positiveness and the ideas that she has, she's just wonderful.
Yeah.
You're involved. You know all these people in Moore County because of what you've done and where you've evolved to.
Well, More Forward is one of my favorite organizations in Moore County.
Right.
And you've tapped into so many of the greatest forces of energy right here in Moore County. And so we're both drawing, I think, on the same kind of body of individuals. Probably, 60% there's overlap, 60 or 70% overlap between probably the board and people, your panel and all those folks. So I love you guys.
Oh, that's great. It's great to hear. Well, it's all
Kelly,
education's a really important foundation of all that.
Yeah.
That's kind of where the focus is.
Yeah.
And you have 3 children?
I have 3 children. Yeah, 2 in the high school.
Right.
And I'm the PTSA president this year. And it's just an important area for, again, back to economic development. You have a good, strong school.
Right.
You have a good, strong community. You have these great organizations like the Philharmonic and great organizations like More Forward, fostering the kids to create businesses and jobs. I think it's just a really, really winning mix. That's just the timing is great, and it's going to be really good for our community in the next few years.
Kelly, I have a question for you. What was the inspiration for you to come here and to teach entrepreneurship? When I was in high school, we didn't have entrepreneurship. We had algebra.
Right.
We had world history. We had gym. We didn't have classes that went beyond the normal academic program. What you're doing is future related, not just present related. What was the inspiration?
I get asked that question a lot.
Okay.
I had a very successful career in banking and wealth management, and all of a sudden one day I left it and decided I wanted to teach. And so a lot of my students will ask me, why did you leave your job in banking? Because, I want to be as realistic with them as possible. So I tell them, here's what I did in my real world, my previous life.
Right.
Here are the things that I was responsible for. And inevitably the question always comes to, how much did you make? They always want to know, how much did you make?
Right.
I don't share specifics, but I give them roundabout ideas to say, if you move into this profession, here's what you can do. And a lot of people ask the question, why did you do this? Why did you do this? So I did this because I always have had a passion for teaching. I've always had a passion for wanting to help someone get from point A to point B.
Mm-hmm.
When I was younger, I used to want to be a teacher, and then I found out how much a teacher made, and I said, okay, on to the next thing.
Right.
So I went into banking. I had a passion for banking. I had a passion for brokerage in general. I was a financial advisor for quite a while. And I somehow could never get away from teaching. Even as I got promoted through the ranks in banking, I always led my training classes. I always wanted to be the guy who went in there, developed the training classes, because I knew how to close those gaps better than anyone else could.
Right.
So I would get in there, and many people came up to me afterwards and said, Kelly, you've missed your calling. Your calling should have always been a teacher.
Right.
And so I've thought about that over the years. And there came a point in my life where I wasn't happy at the end of the day when I went home. I wanted to be happy. You can chase all the money in the world, and it's not going to make you happy. I finally figured that out, and I try to teach that message to my kids every single day, that you can make $1 million a year, and if you're not happy with yourself at the end of the day when you go home, you need to change something. So that is what I did. I changed something and said, I'm going to get out of banking and I'm going to spend my career in academia. So I started teaching at a collegiate level first, and working now on a doctorate. So hopefully I can further this career in academia. But yeah, I decided to go into high school. I kind of shied away from it for quite a bit, but I said, you know what, this is an opportunity to get to younger kids and teach them things that are really important, especially about how to manage money. That's something that is, I was in the business world, was appalled that no one ever taught me that.
Right.
And I had some hard lessons I had to learn going through college to begin with, and had the parents were able to bail me out, thank God. But I wanted to make sure I went in there and taught those types of lessons that I wish that I had learned when I was growing up. And so I hope that answers your question as to why I did it, but it's truly a passion of mine. I love it, and hopefully to continue we'll do it moving forward.
It's not uncommon that a child will ask, well, how much can I make? It's not uncommon. But you take that along a few years later, if a child is only focused on the money, what are they not focused on that can help them get there? There's something missing.
Yeah, definitely. And, I spend a lot of time talking about those other things that are missing.
Right.
I spend a lot of time talking about here are the real things in life that one should be focused on. And it's a hard lesson because, everyone has to learn things the hard way. Everyone has to go through it themselves. And you could sit here and you can tell them 1,000 times, if you go down this path, here are the troubles and tribulations you're going to have. But they have to go through it. And I recognize that, and I allow them to go down the path they need to go through. But I try to guide them along the way. I try to show them, okay, I understand you have to go down this path, but maybe if you heed a little bit of advice, it will be a little easier for you than it was for me.
Yeah. I taught a course when I was in high school to my parents. It was called How to Fit a Circle into a Square. You just push until you squeezed it through, and you go, see, I was right. And your parents, they would have let you fail. They'd let you learn the hard way. But you do gain experience, and you draw on that as you go forward.
Yeah. And, it's important that kids, especially when they're thinking about starting businesses off of ideas now, that they understand there is a safety net there. They understand there's a safety net, not necessarily monetarily, but from an emotional standpoint. There's going to be people there who understand what you've gone through, who can kind of help you get through the anguish that you're going to have to go through, and can help you come out better at the other end of it. And I think for the most part, my students have a good support structure at home, but they definitely have a good support structure with me as their teacher, because I think as we talked about earlier, you need to embrace those failures. I think everyone needs to have some moments where they have failed, and but then there needs to be someone there who can help guide them after they have failed.
If I were teaching entrepreneurship, I think the one thing that I would say beyond the number one, finding your passion, but somehow you have to place your passion and have a higher calling somehow. Mm-hmm. You have to put it in perspective, and it sounds to kids probably like it sounds almost spiritual, but if you don't have a way to give back if you can't take your gift and give it to people, mm-hmm. and have a calling of something much bigger than just your job or how much you get paid or mm-hmm. or getting applause or getting whatever, then that'll last for a while, but mm-hmm. eventually, it won't mean anything.
Yeah, it's a really good point, and that's a very eloquent way to say that. You have to find that higher calling. It's not all about chasing a paycheck, and that's a hard lesson for some people to learn. It seems like when everyone is in school, that's what you want to focus on. I can't wait to get out of school to mm-hmm. make my own money so I can do the things that I want to do. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, you figure out once you've gotten out into the real world, it's not always about that money. It is about finding something that mm-hmm. just makes you happy, and it is. I like the way you said it. It is almost a very spiritual type discovery for oneself. Right. But it seems like everyone has to go through it, and they have to find it at their own pace.
Right.
How do you coach kids? We're playing Eye of the Tiger. You can coach. You can't coach hunger. If a kid has it, he's got it. But the kids that don't have it, but they might have a sense of entitlement, you can spot that pretty quickly, can't you?
You can, and that's
they think the world owes them a favor.
Yeah, that's we actually were talking about it in the break a bit.
Yeah.
I've done a lot of research and the differences in the generations that we have going on now. We have something that's happening in society now where you have 3, sometimes 4 different generations working in one spot, and how do you get these individuals motivated to work together towards a common cause? Mm-hmm. And it's not an easy task because every generation is geared towards a different set of motivating factors, and finding the right motivating factor for the current generation is somewhat of a bit of a challenge, to be quite honest with you, right. Because they're used to having things frankly handed to them. They're the now generation. We want things right now. We don't mm-hmm. want to wait for it. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, a lot of times they don't want to work for it. So finding the right buttons to press in a student now to get them to understand the concept of, hey, I do have to work for this. There is some sort of effort or dues, if you will, that have to be paid before the success comes. Mm-hmm. Can be a bit challenging. And so what I try to do as a teacher, as their teacher, is find the natural gift that everyone has. Everyone has a natural gift. And it's my job to push them in the right direction in order to help them discover their own natural gift. Mm-hmm. I'm very much of a Socratic method teacher, so I teach by asking lots of questions, and sometimes that frustrates them. But I feel that they're more committed once they find the answers out for themselves on their own. So.
Yeah. Getting back to what David... Well, go ahead, David. You had a thought.
I was just thinking, your story is inspirational to me because you started with a passion, and that brought you to a new passion. And because of your previous passion, you're able to bring something very special to all these kids.
Yeah.
And the idea that it doesn't have to be one thing, mm-hmm. But there has to be at least one thing, always.
And what David was saying was getting to a point where you're giving and you're sharing for a higher calling. That requires integrating knowledge. We have kids who are so motivated to get A's, and they're so compartmentalized. They'll get an A here, an A here, and an A here, but there's no tether line between the 3 different compartments. So you have to integrate.
Right.
And then you grow from that step. To get to where David is talking about, it takes a lot of groundwork, mm-hmm. Lay the right foundation, mm-hmm. instead of just saying, no, don't just get a 4.0, don't just get straight A's. That's not going to guarantee you success.
It's interesting you said there's some compartmentalization in the way a teenager thinks about things, because it very much is. They think about chemistry, they think about biology, they think about history,
right?
But they haven't quite understood how these things interrelate with each other and how they interrelate to the world as a whole.
Right.
And what I do is in my class, I try to find a lot of I can't remember the term we use for it. It just slipped my mind. But interrelated teachings that can be drawn from my class, but could also be drawn from horticulture, can be drawn to history. I recently just took my group on a field trip to the Biltmore Estate, where we studied Bill Cecil inheriting the Biltmore and turning that into a very viable business for the state of North Carolina. And for their family. And there were a lot of kind of interrelated curriculums that could be taught through the horticulture department, but also through the history department.
Right.
And I try to bring all those in so that people see, or so the students see rather, that we are teaching this one subject. However, we're all interrelated. And when you leave this world of academia,
Right.
everything is interrelated. And you have to figure out a way to balance all of these things together.
Mm-hmm. And the kids asking you why you're teaching is a way they're trying to justify, but you can quantify why you are, and because of where you've come from, so that you are a good role model. You've been there, you've done that. It's not just that you're teaching. You bring to the table an experience that they can emulate.
Yeah, the kids these days, as I said earlier as we started out, they love real-world stories. They
Right.
love hearing
Right.
how this came to be. And and even I remember when I was younger, hearing people's stories brought out passion in me as well. But as someone who's been in the business world, I can actually walk into the classroom and say, here's the way it really is. I understand this is the way our texts say that it should be, but let me tell you the way it really is, and how it's going to really work, and how you need to interact with it in order to make it a success for you.
Yeah. We in our business, in many businesses, we try to discern self-generators from people who have an attitude of what can you do for me, and it's pretty easy to spot that. You probably are an expert at it at this point.
I'm not sure if I'm an expert, but I've gotten really, really good at it.
Really good at it, right? I think David Michael Wolf would be a great role model for your students.
That's probably not a good idea.
I think it's a great idea. Actually, I do. I think it's a great idea.
Well, when you see these kids present at the Shark Tank, it is so inspiring.
Yeah.
I'm going.
It's not easy for them to
They
do.
have to stand up and face the good, the bad, and the ugly,
Put the
right?
whole project together, come up with a business idea, and then stand up in front of a room. So that in and of itself is really kind of stunning, because you were talking about why you were speaking. While you're teaching, I was thinking, why are they taking the class? They've got to want to stand up in front, or know that they're going to have to stand up in front of a room, come up with a viable business.
Yeah.
That's a very particular, either you're teaching it, that skill or attitude, or they have it, and that's impressive.
Our world is a changing place, and kids need to be able to think outside of the box all the time, because the world keeps changing, and if they are so compartmentalized, they're going to be lost.
All right, exactly.
I keep thinking about kids finding their voice, and
Yeah.
tonight we're doing
Finding their
Gershwin's
voice.
An American in Paris, and Gershwin, when it was 1928, the Roaring '20s, just before the stock market crashed, but he went to Maurice Ravel, the great Impressionist composer, came to America. Gershwin was one of his biggest fans, and so he had his portfolio. He met Ravel, and he said, "Can I please study with you?" And Ravel said, "It's better to be a first-rate Gershwin than a second-rate Ravel." But he said, "I'm going to write you a letter of recommendation to this teacher, Nadia Boulanger." He went to Paris, and he met her, and she said, he played for 10 minutes, and she said, "I have nothing to teach you. Just pursue yourself."
Wow.
David Michael Wolf, thank you for joining us. I hope people get out tonight at the Robert E. Lee Auditorium and see An American in Paris tonight on Broadway. It's always great to see you.
Good to have you. Thanks for having me.
You're a great co-host. Really are.
Sorry.
Kelly Cameron and Melissa Hall. We'll look forward to seeing you Wednesday, May the 20th at the Fair Barn in Pinehurst. Bunch of high school students are going to get a great opportunity to learn about the world and be better people for it. More Forward's a great organization, Melissa. Thanks. We want to have you back.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
Pleasure.
definitely. Thank you, Bill.
It was a pleasure talking to you all. Everybody, have a great week.